Story number 1, definitely paranormal. Bear with me here. This morning, as the tendrils of slumber gradually released their grip on my consciousness, I emerged from a dream that left me with an unsettling sense of unease. In that ephemeral realm of subconscious wanderings, I find myself immersed in a peculiar scenario where an unseen presence seems to be observing me intently from the darkened corner of my room. Strangely enough, I possessed an inexplicable knowledge that this entity was of vegan nature, yet harbored a sinister desire to consume me despite its herbivorous inclinations. As the morning light gently caressed my face, I awoke from this disconcerting reverie, my heart racing only to discover that the room was devoid of any spectral intruders. The rational part of my mind attempted to dismiss this episode as a mere figment of my imagination, for it was not uncommon to experience peculiar dreams from time to time. Nevertheless, this unsettling encounter seemed to prelude to an inexplicable series of events that would test the boundaries of my understanding. In my daily routine, I had developed the habit of indulging in two specific culinary delights around 6 o'clock each day: a delectable plate of succulent chicken nuggets and a steaming bowl of savory beef top ramen. However, I was met with a most disheartening revelation. The freezer within my house, where I kept a stockpile of nuggets, had been inexplicably depleted. An undeniable sense of frustration welled up within me as I pondered the baffling circumstances surrounding the disappearance of my beloved nuggets. I was certain that I had meticulously added a fresh batch to my grocery cart during last week's expedition, an incontrovertible fact dutifully recorded within the sacred confines of my personal diary. How then could such a crucial component of my daily sustenance vanish without a trace? Seeking answers, I embarked upon a thorough investigation, determined to leave no stone unturned in my quest for the truth. Before interrogating any potential suspects residing within the confines of my home, I felt compelled to undertake a meticulous search of every nook and cranny, every hidden corner and secret compartment that might reveal the clandestine whereabouts of my missing nuggets. Alas, my thorough exploration of each refrigerator, every chilled sanctuary of sustenance within my household, yielded no trace of the elusive nuggets. Frustration mingled with the burgeoning sense of incredulity as I pondered the implausible notion that an entire bag of conspicuously large and vividly yellow nuggets could simply vanish into thin air. Driven by an unyielding determination to uncover the truth, I retraced my steps back to the external freezer, the domain of cold storage nestled within the protective embrace of nature's elements. With a glimmer of hope, albeit tinged with the growing trepidation, I threw open the freezer's frost-covered door and scrutinized its contents with unwavering scrutiny. And there, right before my eyes, perched innocuously on the highest shelf, lay the very bag of nuggets that had eluded my search within the confines of my home. How could this be? I had been inside my abode for no more than a fleeting moment, rendering it nearly impossible for someone to serendipitously pilfer my prized possession without producing even the slightest hint of the freezer's distinctive creak. A cacophony of thoughts clamored for attention within the recesses of my mind. Was this an elaborate prank orchestrated by a mischievous companion, or an act of culinary thievery perpetuated by an audacious housemate? None of these scenarios seemed to fit the evidence at hand, leaving me adrift in a sea of perplexity. As I continued to puzzle over the enigma that had unfolded before me, the specter of my early dream resurfaced, weaving an intangible thread of connection between the surreal and mundane. Could it be possible that these inexplicable occurrences were more than mere coincidences? That some unseen force was at play orchestrating a series of bewildering events to test the limits of my comprehension? Doubt and uncertainty swirled within me, mingling with the lingering taste of frustration and the disquieting realization that the boundaries between the ordinary and the paranormal had become increasingly blurred. "This is very strange for a story about nuggets," says the narrator, who did not pick the story. "In this perplexing tapestry of dreams and mundane realities, I found myself poised on the precipice of understanding, yearning to unravel the intricacies of this perplexing narrative that has taken root within the fabric of my existence. Thus, armed with determination and an insatiable thirst for truth and apparently nuggets, I embarked upon a journey of discovery, prepared to delve into the depths of the unknown and confront the mysteries that lay hidden beneath the surface of my everyday life. Little did I know about this seemingly innocuous incident involving a bag of nuggets would be but a first chapter in a saga that would challenge my very essence of understanding, leading me down a rabbit hole of intrigue and revelations, forever altering the trajectory of my reality. Story number 2. Something from my previous residence still follows me. This is my complete telling of it. I grew up in a smallish town in Texas, nestled in the heart of the Lone Star State. It's been quite some time since I lived there, and from what I've heard, the town has undergone significant growth. However, amidst all the changes, one thing remains constant. The house I grew up in still stands tall, brimming with memories and stories that have shaped my life. To truly grasp the essence of the situation, I must provide a bit of backstory. I was raised as a middle child, sandwiched between 2 sisters. In our childhood home, the kids' rooms were located on the upper floor. On one side of the upstairs was my room, complete with an attached bathroom and sink area leading into the game room. On the other side, my sisters occupied their rooms, which were connected by the adjoining bathroom. Now, I'm about to share with you what may sound kind of odd, and perhaps even humorous. You see, my family has always had a peculiar tradition of pranking each other on April Fool's Day. Being the only brother, I often found myself on the receiving end of my sister's mischievous pranks. One fateful April Fool's Day, they conspired to play a prank on me by writing creepy messages on the bathroom mirror and creating an illusion of ghost hauntings in my room. It managed to startle me initially, and my sisters couldn't contain their laughter as they reveled in my fear. Little did we know that this harmless prank would set off a series of events that would haunt me until the day that I moved out, and even beyond until my family eventually relocated a few years later. I vividly recall one night around 1 a.m. when I was deep in slumber in my cozy bed. Suddenly, the bathroom light flickered on, jolting me awake. In my drowsy state, I stumbled out of bed, intending to turn it off, assuming the light switch had been left on in an intermediate position. As I approached the bathroom, I was taken aback to find the switch actually in the off position. Perplexed, I rushed to my sister's rooms only to find them peacefully snoring away. It was apparent that no one had tampered with the light switch. In a daze, I returned to my room only to discover that the switch was now up and the light was off, the complete opposite of its previous state. I toggled the switch back and forth, but it stubbornly remained off. A sense of unease crept over me, but I chose to ignore it, burying my apprehensions as I crawled back into bed, positioning myself to face the wall, just in case the light decided to play tricks on me once more. The following day, I mustered the courage to recount the bizarre incident to my father, seeking his wisdom and explanation. He inspected the light switch only to find it functioning perfectly. This revelation troubled me greatly as I knew deep down that something inexplicable had occurred the previous night. Nonetheless, I brushed off the lingering weirdness, convincing myself it was a mere anomaly. Little did I know that the events were far from over, and they would persist in haunting me night after night. Over the years, the occurrences escalated, intensifying my discomfort and fear. It began with the bathroom light, but soon the flickering invaded my closet, followed by the bedroom lights abruptly going out one after the other, every month like clockwork. The eerie incident continues in an endless cycle, each time leaving me to confront the inexplicable happenings all on my own. This unsettling pattern endured until that pivotal night when my family and sisters made plans to go out of town for the weekend, leaving me behind. Originally, I saw this as an opportunity to confront whatever mysterious force had been tormenting me for years. With my family away, I felt a strange mixture of excitement and trepidation as usual. I was determined to unravel the enigma that had plagued my childhood home. As the day turned into night, a sense of solitude enveloped me. The house, usually bustling with laughter and chatter of my loved ones, now stood silent and still. I decided to take matters into my own hands and began my investigation. Equipped with a flashlight, a notepad, and a camera, I ventured into every nook and cranny of the house. I started with my bedroom, inspecting every inch for any sign of tampering or hidden mechanisms. I searched the closet under the bed and even behind the furniture, but found nothing out of the ordinary. The unease continued to gnaw at me, fueling my determination to uncover the truth. Next, I focused my attention on the bathroom, the epicenter of the strange occurrences. I examined the mirror, hoping to find some clue or hidden message like the ones my sisters had pranked me with years ago. But the mirror was pristine, reflecting only my puzzled expression back at me. Moving on, I reached the light switch, which had been the catalyst for my ongoing torment. I examined it closely, tracing the lines of the electrical wiring and testing its functionality. Everything seemed normal, which only deepened the mystery further. I took a series of photographs, hoping that the camera's lens might capture something unseen to the naked eye. As I explored the house, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creaking floorboard and gust of wind seemed to amplify the sense of unease. Despite the growing unease, I pushed forward, determined to bring an end to the haunting. Hours turned into the late night and exhaustion began to set in. I decided to retreat to my room, hoping that a fresh perspective in the morning might shed some light on the situation. Just as I was about to settle into my bed, a sudden chill filled the air, causing goosebumps to prickle on my skin. I turned around, and to my astonishment, I saw a faint figure standing in the corner of my room. My heart raced and fear gripped me, but a part of me refused to run away. I mustered the courage to approach the figure cautiously, holding out the camera to capture any evidence of its existence. But as I drew closer, the figure dissipated into thin air, leaving only an icy breeze in its wake. It was at that moment, amidst the lingering cold, that a realization dawned upon me. The disturbances were not caused by some external force or supernatural entity. They were a product of my own fears and the weight of my childhood pranks manifesting in a strange and inexplicable way. Understanding this, I sensed a big feeling of relief as it washed over me. The haunting ceased, never to trouble me again. It was a lesson learned, a reminder that sometimes the most profound mysteries lie within ourselves. In the years that followed, my family eventually moved away, bidding farewell to the house that held so many memories, both joyous and haunting. As for me, I carried the lessons of that time with me, embracing the importance of confronting fears and seeking the truth, even in the face of the unknown. Now, whenever I recall those eerie nights in my childhood home, I do so with a mixture of nostalgia and gratitude. It was in those moments of uncertainty that I discovered my own resilience and the power of facing our fears head on. And as I continue on my journey through life, I carry the strength with me, ready to face any mystery that may come my way. My experience with haunted houses, story number 3. When I reflect back on my childhood years, I'm immediately transported to a time when life was simpler, and I resided in a quaint, aging abode alongside my mother, brother, and beloved grandparents. Our dwelling, an ancient structure erected in the early 1900s, held within its weathered walls a tapestry of history that fascinated me. My mother had also spent her teenage years in this very house, and she often regaled us with the tales of its previous occupants. Given the age of the house, it was safe to assume that those individuals had long since departed from the earthly realm. Curiously enough, our home was no stranger to peculiar occurrences. As my mother recounted, following the passing of our great-grandparents, she would catch whiffs of their distinct perfumes and colognes at the most unexpected moments. It was as though they continued to watch over us from the realms beyond, providing a comforting presence amidst the unknown. Such experiences became an integral part of our lives, evoking a sense of solace and reminding us that even in death, our loved ones could remain with us in spirit. However, one fateful night, when I was just a tender soul of 13 or 14, I found myself immersed in a riveting video game session that extended into the wee hours of the morning. The rest of the household slumbered soundly, oblivious to the mystical events unfolding around us. It was during these solitary moments that I became acutely aware of the peculiar sound of footsteps echoing outside my room. Intrigued, I paused my game and cautiously ventured to investigate the source of the disturbance. Initially, I surmised that it could be my brother or one of my grandparents making their nocturnal pilgrimages to the bathroom. Yet, to my bewilderment, I failed to encounter any familiar faces in the dimly lit corridor. The enigmatic footsteps, however, persisted, their origin seemingly emanating from the ethereal confines of the attic. I vividly recall the peculiar nature of the attic door. It lacked a traditional doorknob, instead boasting a keyhole that required the unlocking of a long-forgotten secret before its wooden embrace would yield to those curious enough to seek its contents. The attic remained locked, or so I believed. As I attempted to rationalize the inexplicable phenomenon that had unfolded before me, some friends offered suggestions to ease my perplexity. Perhaps it was an animal, they postulated, seemingly oblivious to the weighty nature of the footsteps that resonated throughout the house. Their hypothesis proved feeble in the face of reason, for the audacity of the sounds was far too substantial to be attributed to a diminutive creature. Furthermore, it was summer, a season devoid of creatures seeking refuge in the attic, and they won't be doing that during the chilly winter months. Another audacious theory proposed by a confidant was that a vagrant soul had infiltrated our sanctum, seeking shelter in the solace of our attic. Yet such a notion seemed utterly preposterous, as there existed no viable means for an intruder to access that ethereal realm. The attic windows, barred by the passage of time, stood as impassable sentinels, their dimension insufficient to accommodate the corporeal form of a human intruder. Moreover, an indescribable presence loomed, permeating the atmosphere with a disquieting aura that extended beyond the boundaries of reason and instilled in me an ineffable sense of trepidation. It was an uncanny sensation, one that hinted at the presence of an entity distinct from my own flesh and blood. In the wake of these eerie events, my family too shared their own encounters with the inexplicable, further solidifying our belief that our dwelling was a nexus between the realms of the living and the deceased. These unsettling incidents represented my inaugural brush with the supernatural, leaving an indelible mark upon my impressionable young mind. Alas, my knowledge of the house's history remained limited, its origins shrouded in mystery, save for the fact that it stood as a testament to the passage of time, having withstood the trials and tribulations over a century. It's pretty old. As fate would have it, the onset of my high school years brought with it an upheaval in our lives, leading us to bid farewell to the house that had sheltered us for so long. Financial burdens manifested in exorbitant bills, weighed heavily upon my aging grandparents, rendering the maintenance of our cherished home an untenable prospect. Thus we found ourselves uprooted, thrust into the embrace of a new dwelling reminiscent of our former abode, albeit with slight variations. Our transition occurred in 2017, a year that etched itself upon the annals of our familial chronicle. The new residence, much like its predecessor, bore the marks of time's passage, attesting to the legacy of a bygone era. Its previous owner, a venerable soul who had inhabited these very walls during her formative years, shared anecdotes brimming with nostalgia. Her daughter, the bearer of these tales, divulged a curious tidbit of information. Originally, her brother was to inherit the house upon their mother's eventual departure from this mortal realm. However, the vagaries of fate conspired against the arrangement, and it was her brother who departed first, leading to the eventual sale of the house to my family. The significance of this revelation lies in the tragic demise of the daughter's brother, who met his untimely fate within the confines of the very attic that now sheltered us. The scent of cigars frequently wafted through the nocturnal air found its genesis in his last moments, forever intertwining the ethereal presence of his restless soul with the very essence of the attic's spectral ambiance. As we became acquainted with our newfound abode, whispers of the extraordinary soon manifested themselves into our daily lives. I too bore witness to the unexplicable, as a resonating echo of phantom footsteps reverberated through the hollow recesses of the basement when I stood alone, isolated from all forms of companionship. The persistent discomfort that gripped my heart each time I ascended the staircase, leading to the attic, cannot be easily dismissed as mere figments of my imagination. Nay, it was an intangible force, an unsettling energy that permeated the air, enveloping me in a shroud of unease. My mother, too, shared in my affliction, frequently catching whiffs of the familiar cigar smoke, as if the deceased denizen of the attic were reaching across the boundaries of existence to remind us of his presence. The nighttime streets, shrouded in tranquility, harbored no trace of light night smokers, and our queries to the neighbors yielded no satisfactory answers. Ultimately, the undeniable truth came to light through the revelations of my wise grandfather, who enlightened us on the tragic demise of the son of the previous house's owner, a soul bound to the attic, condemned to eternally haunt the domain of his final earthly moments. And thus, our lives unfolded within the confines of this new residence, accompanied by the lingering presence of an ethereal soul who walked the corridors of our dwelling. Yet, as the sands of time continued to trickle through the hourglass, a curious revelation unfolded. We found respite from the uncanny happenings that had punctured our days. Gradually, the enigmatic presence that we had grown accustomed to dissipated, like morning mist surrendering to the gentle embrace of the sun's golden rays. The passage of time, it seemed, had a peculiar way of mending the chasms between the living and the dead. 4 years have passed since our resettlement, 4 years that bear witness to the absence of further inexplicable occurrences. Neither I nor my mother have experienced anything out of the ordinary within these walls. Perhaps the renovations were undertook, painting the walls, changing the floor, and shedding ourselves of the remnants of the past, imbued our dwelling with a new sense of vitality, severing the ties that once bound us to the specters of yore. Yet the attic remains a source of unease for me, an indelible reminder of the one who met his tragic end within its confines. It is here that the line between the earthly realm and the ethereal becomes tenuous, as the spirit of the deceased lingers a mere whisper away from my conscious reality. Such is the extent of my chronicle, a tale woven from the threads of a childhood intertwined with the supernatural, intertwining the lives of the living and the deceased in a dance that transcends the boundaries of time. Though my home now rests in a state of tranquil equilibrium, an indescribable undercurrent of apprehension still accompanies my footsteps whenever I venture near the foreboding attic door. In the end, it is a testament to the enduring power of the departed, reminding us that even in the realm of the living, the echoes of the past can shape our present and future, leaving an indelible mark upon the tapestry of our existence. Story number 4. La Lorena, the Weeper. When I was 14 or 15, I found myself in Mexico, participating in a camp program that was aligned with the Catholic Christian Learning Program. The purpose of this program was to practice and prepare for confirmation, a significant Catholic tradition. Now, let me tell you about a peculiar incident that occurred during my time at the camp. One day, the camp organizers informed us that we had to go on a retreat to another church. Apparently, the church that we usually attended and practiced in was being used for some event, but I didn't bother to delve into the details or care too much about it, as I found church to be incredibly boring. Nevertheless, we were instructed to head to a different church situated on a hill within the same rural area as our camp. The church we were directed to was abandoned and currently undergoing renovations, which made it an ideal location for the retreat. We wouldn't have had to disturb anyone, and we would carry out our activities completely undisturbed. However, fate had a different plan in store for me and one other person. On that eventful morning, my friend and I woke up hella late, realizing that we had overslept. Panic set in and we realized the camp-owned cars, our sole means of transportation, were no longer available since we had missed their departure. We urgently needed to find an alternative mode of transportation, so we scraped together some money and paid for a bus ride to the church. We hopped onto a bus, hoping that it would take us to our destination. However, our journey was riddled with misadventures. We mistakenly got off at several churches, wasting precious time and growing increasingly frustrated. Finally, after a series of wrong turns, we managed to arrive at the correct church, mentally and physically exhausted. Entering the church through the front doors, we remained oblivious to the fact that the actual retreat was supposed to take place through another door leading to the basement. The initial room we entered was akin to a lobby, with a glass pane doorway revealing the altar and the seats within. Bizarrely, every exit and side passage was barricaded with furniture and heavy items, presumably due to the ongoing remodeling work. The glass door, however, was tightly locked, preventing any access. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as we surveyed the room. Suddenly, our attention was drawn to a tall, slender woman kneeling on the floor. She appeared to be shrouded in a long black dress, with a veil covering her face, evoking images of an imposing figure from Resident Evil. The darkness seemed to envelop her, accentuating her presence within the dimly lit space. To our astonishment, we noticed a Bible or a large book on the floor, its pages torn out. As we stood there, startled by the sight before us, we heard the woman weeping. The sound reverberated through the room, intensifying the eerie atmosphere. Fear gripped us, and in that moment, she turned her face slightly toward us, revealing only a fraction of her features, an ominous sight indeed. Her cheek and nose were visible, displaying a complexion reminiscent of those witches from folklore, with a ghastly gray hue reminiscent of Palpatine. Without thinking, I instinctively jumped back, my heart pounding with terror, and fled from the doorway, my friend closely following suit. We ran for our lives, consumed by fear and confusion. My friend sought solace in waiting for help, but I was overcome with a stubborn rage fueled by the frustration of missing several churches along the way. In a fit of anger, I made a reckless decision. Against my friend's protests, I defied my better judgment and rushed back through the door, determined to confront the mysterious entity that had startled us. I braced myself, preparing to unleash my fury upon this unknown presence. As I re-entered the room, my eyes widened in disbelief. The space was now empty, devoid of the woman and the book that had been present moments ago. Our tumultuous commotion had caught the attention of our teachers and proctors, who swiftly approached us. Wearing stern expressions, they chastised us for our truly unruly behavior, pulling on our ears in reprimand, before forcefully dragging us out into the retreat of the basement. When I mustered the courage to recount the encounter to our teachers, expecting empathy or understanding, they merely laughed it off. According to them, they had all been at the church all day, preparing for our arrival, and they were the only ones who possessed the keys. Till this day, I remain haunted by that inexplicable experience, the abandoned church with its barricaded exits, and the enigmatic weeping woman continues to linger in my memories. It serves as a stark reminder that there are forces and occurrences that are, in this world, defying all explanation, leaving us in a state of bewilderment and questioning the nature of our reality. Story number 5. Paranormal encounters when I was younger. When I think back to my younger years, I'm filled with vivid memories of living with my grandparents and parents under one roof. It was a unique household, with each of my relatives having their own share of strange and unexplainable occurrences that took place within the confines of the house. Personally, I experienced an abundance of inexplicable events that have left me questioning the nature of reality. It all began with our dogs, Snowball and Max. They were usually well-behaved and simply barked at typical noises or unfamiliar visitors. However, there were moments when their behavior became peculiar, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I recall one incident vividly when I went to use the downstairs restroom. As I opened the door, Snowball was waiting there, seemingly frozen in place, her gaze fixated on something to my left. I followed her line of sight, but to my bewilderment, there was nothing there. Yet there was an undeniable presence that I couldn't sense. A chill ran down my spine and I hastily retreated from the area, with Snowball following close behind. Another time, Snowball barked relentlessly at the back door while I was attempting to take her outside. Yet, when I investigated, there was no discernible cause for her agitation. On a separate occasion, I was in the living room area with my grandpa, demonstrating some of the cup-stacking tricks I had learned at school. I retrieved a stack of styrofoam cups from a nearby cabinet, which was situated next to the hallway leading to the bathroom. Absent-mindedly, I left the cabinet door ajar. It's worth noting that this particular cabinet was quite large and required a significant amount of force to close its small door properly. As I proudly showcased my cup-stacking skills to my grandpa, a sudden thunderous slam reverberated through the room, drawing our attention toward the cabinet. To our astonishment, the cabinet door had shut on its own accord. We exchanged bewildered glances, unsure of how to react in the face of such an inexplicable event. As a child, I often found solace in sleeping alongside my grandparents in their room, especially since my parents were frequently occupied with work. I can still recall countless nights spent lying in the darkness while my grandparents slumbered peacefully beside me. Sleep eluded me easily, and I would often find myself blinking into inky blackness of the room. Positioned in the rightmost side of the bed, I began to experience a peculiar phenomenon that I can only describe as an energy approaching me from the doorway leading to the bathroom. The first time the sensation enveloped me, it felt kind of strange yet intriguing, as if an unseen force was drawing near. Despite the absence of any visible entity, gradually this energy would edge closer to my side, building an almost unbearable tension within me. Then, without warning, it felt as if an invisible fist struck me squarely on the face before abruptly retreating. This inexplicable phantom punch left me perplexed and anxious, prompting me to experiment with different responses. Curiosity mingled with fear as I tentatively covered my face during these encounters, and to my surprise, the sensation of being struck would gradually fade away. This newfound habit became a desperate attempt to protect myself from these bewildering attacks, as the enigmatic force continued to baffle and unnerve me. Within that house, my own bedroom occupied a position at the end of the upstairs hallway. I learned from my mother that this room had previously been hers, and she started a chilling account of encountering a ghostly girl who would silently observe her from the edge of the bed. As you can imagine, this revelation sent shivers down my spine, for in that room, I was residing. Still, I remained undeterred and proceeded with my daily routines. Yet, on one particular occasion, while standing in front of the upstairs bathroom sink, washing my face, an eerie sensation crept into my consciousness. The bathroom, small and suffocatingly claustrophobic, compelled me to leave the door ajar unless I was showering or using the toilet. It was during one of these moments, as I cleansed my face and peered into the mirror, that I noticed a dark figure gradually materializing in my peripheral vision, originating from the hallway. Whenever I attempted to direct my gaze directly at the figure, it swiftly dissipated, leaving me with an overwhelming sense of unease. At the time, I convinced myself that it was just my imagination running wild, but in the light of subsequent discoveries regarding shadow people, I can't help but wonder if there was something more sinister at play in that house. To further add to the mysterious ambiance of our home, various family members recounted instances where they heard distinct footsteps traversing the stairs, occupied by the faint jingling of our dogs' collars as they played with the unseen presence. Additionally, the lights in the hallway inexplicably turned off, despite the functionality of the switch and the recent replacement of fresh light bulbs. Whenever we attempted to restore illumination by flicking the switch, the hallway remained enveloped in darkness, enhancing the eerie atmosphere that already permeated the space. As I grew older and delved deeper into my Laotian heritage, I stumbled upon an intriguing cultural belief, the concept of raising ghost children. It was believed that having a spirit child as part of the household brought good luck and blessings. Reflecting on this newfound knowledge, I began connecting the dots within my own family dynamics. My grandma's small altar, adorned with food offerings, and her whispered chants suddenly took on a deeper significance. It became clear to me that perhaps the ghostly presence in her house was indeed a child spirit, and by some strange twist of fate, it seemed to have taken a liking to my company. Considering my age at the time, I couldn't help but wonder if we shared a similar stage in our spectral existence. The general consensus among my family members was that this eternal entity was a young girl, adding an additional layer of the intrigue to an already mystifying narrative. Looking back, the inexplicable events that unfolded within the walls of my childhood home remain etched in my memory. Each peculiar occurrence continues to defy rational explanation, leaving me with an enduring sense of curiosity and a lingering belief that there are forces beyond our comprehension, lurking in the shadows. The house that sheltered my family was a realm where the veil between the tangible and intangible seemed to waver, where the mundane intertwined with the supernatural. To this day, I'm left pondering the true nature of those inexplicable encounters and the enigmatic force that coexisted within that particular house. Story number 6, Boot Steps, Evil Presence. That night remains etched in my memory as the most haunting ghost encounter I have ever experienced. It was a chilling experience that left me terrified and shaken to the core. Allow me to recount the details of that spine-tingling night. I was just 17 years old when I decided to live with my aunt in Massachusetts. Her residence was an ancient house nestled amidst a thick expanse of woods, accessible only via a dirt road. Apart from our house, there were only 2 other dwellings nearby. Unfortunately, one of those houses was occupied by a rather unsettling elderly gentleman. We had caught him peering through our window on several occasions, which compelled us to take extra precautions by locking all the doors. Initially, I resided on the couch, as I had no bed of my own. It became a routine for my aunt's dog to curl up beside me as well, providing me with some company during the nights. Adjacent to the living room, there was a peculiar room that served as a closet. It had 2 doors, one leading outside and the other connecting it to the living room. There was always an eerie vibe surrounding that room, and consequently, we seldom utilized the back door. Then one day, my aunt surprised me with a cot in that very closet room. She sympathized with me for sleeping on the couch and decided to grant me my own personal space. Little did I know that this act of kindness would usher in a nightmarish experience. On the first and only night I slept on that cot, my aunt's dog immediately leapt into its well. Prior to laying down, I made sure to bolt lock the back door, while leaving the living room door wide open. As I settled in, unsettling feelings washed over me, a foreboding sensation that something dreadfully was amiss. You know that sinking pit in your stomach that serves as an omen of impending doom? I experienced it acutely that night. I lay there struggling to fall asleep when suddenly the dog's growls pierced the silence, directed toward the opposite side of the closet, merely steps away from me. Fear-stricken, I dared not turn to face the source of this agitation. Then, as if in a horror movie, I heard the creaking of the door swinging shut. The dog, still on the cot, intensified its growling, fiercely protecting me from the unknown force that was causing the door to close. And then came the sound of heavy boot steps. Each thud resonated through the room, growing louder as they drew closer to my cot. The dog's frenzied barks filled the air, a symphony of terror. In my mind, I immediately conjured up the image of a murderous intruder. Oddly, the thought of a ghost never crossed my mind. I was petrified, paralyzed by an overwhelming fear that rendered me unable to scream or react. All I could manage was a feeble whimper, a desperate plea for help. The intruder's approach to my cot was agonizingly slow, though it likely took more than maybe 2 or 3 steps. In that petrifying moment, time seemed to stretch indefinitely. Finally, he leaned over, and I could feel the weight of his presence, accompanied by his labored breathing, brushing against the back of my neck. Evil emanating from him, a malevolence that convinced me of my impending demise. The dog, still in a frenzy, continued its ferocious barking. It was in that moment of sheer terror that my paralysis momentarily broke, and I screamed for my aunt. Without wasting a second, my aunt and her boyfriend rushed into the room, flicking on the lights to dispel the darkness. To my horror, there was no one there. Tears streamed down my face, and I insisted that a man had been right next to me. My aunt's boyfriend scoured the house, searching for any sign of an intruder, but there was nothing, no trace of an individual, no evidence of a break-in. All the doors remained securely locked. It was as if an intruder had vanished into thin air. That night left an indelible mark within me, instilling a deep-seated fear that would forever linger. I vowed never to set foot in that room again, for it was within those four walls that I had genuinely felt my life was in grave danger. Story number 7. Scary Ghost Boy. When I was growing up, I had a peculiar ability that set me apart from others. I could see people that no one else could. At first, it didn't frighten me much, but as I reached the age of 12, things took on a sinister turn. To my surprise, my best friend shared the same extraordinary gift. We ended up having numerous eerie encounters together. But one particular incident instilled fear in us like nothing else before. We were both 13 years old, and my friend was staying over at my house for the night. You see, my younger brother often suffered from severe night terrors, so when we heard a strange noise echoing from outside my room, our immediate assumption was that it must be him. It was well past 1 a.m., and the entire house lay cloaked in darkness. With my parents sound asleep, since I was usually the one to console my brother during the night terrors, we gathered our courage and decided to investigate. Step by step, we ventured outside my room, traversing the dimly lit hallway that seemed to stretch on forever. Eventually, we reached the dining room, situated at the end of the corridor, and decided to illuminate the room by switching on the light. Positioned directly across from us, at the far end of the dining room, stood a sliding glass door. However, our attention was immediately drawn to an unexpected sight, a figure of a young boy perched on the edge of the dining room table. His back turned toward the door, an unsettling sensation washed over us. Unsettling our nerves, we assumed that it had to be my brother, yet something felt distinctly amiss. In unison, we called out my brother's name, hoping for a response. However, as the sound of his name left our lips, a profound realization began to dawn upon me. This boy was far too slender to be my brother, and his attire seemed strangely unfamiliar. Curiosity piqued, I glanced at the reflection cast upon the glass surface of the sliding door, and what I witnessed nearly paralyzed me with terror. The boy's face appeared emaciated and sickly, his eyes grotesquely enlarged and completely devoid of color. A menacing grin adorned his features, and his gaze bore into my very soul. Though the encounter transpired in mere seconds, the intensity of those moments stretched time, etching the memory of that ghastly countenance into my mind. Reacting swiftly, my friend grasped my arm tightly, her expression mirroring the shock and horror that had seized me. Instinctively, we fled back to the sanctuary of my room, slamming the door shut behind us, and succumbed to the overwhelming surge of fear, with tears streaming down our face. Together, we meticulously recounted the events that had just unfolded, each desperate to validate our own sanity and assure ourselves that we hadn't succumbed to collective madness. Nonetheless, even as I write these words, a shiver races down my spine, a chilling reminder that night's harrowing encounter that continues to haunt me. My friend's house. Let me share with you a chilling tale that unfolded in the year of 1992, a spine-tingling experience that occurred within the confines of my friend's house. Back then, we were a tight-knit group of 4 bosom buddies, navigating the treacherous waters of high school together. It was during this time that one of our comrades extended an invitation, beckoning us to spend the night at his residence. You see, he harbored a deep-seated fear of being alone, for his entire family had made plans to embark on an out-of-town escapade. Alas, he could not accompany them, due to his unyielding commitment to his academic pursuits. Curiosity piqued our interests as we revealed the motive behind his anxiety. Strange occurrences he claimed plagued his house, instilling an unshakable sense of unease within him. Our friend regaled us with a tale of his neighbor, a hapless teenage girl who had fallen prey to the clutches of demonic possession. It was only through the intervention of a valiant priest and an ensuing exorcism that the girl was liberated from the insidious clutches of the netherworld. However, the family, overwhelmed by the haunting memories, chose to demolish the accursed house, believing that the malevolent spirit had somehow managed to traverse the ethereal plane and infest my friend's house. Thus, with apprehension and intrigue, the 4 of us embarked upon this nocturnal odyssey. The day commenced innocuously, with us immersing ourselves in the celluloid world of Top Gun, as the hours gradually slipped away. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows upon the earth, we retreated to the sanctity of my friend's room, engaging in animated conversations, while the dulcet tones of the radio serenaded our eager ears. Together we embarked upon a quest to discover the perfect frequency, tuning it in to our preferred station. The radio jockey would periodically grace our auditory landscape, introducing the melodious melodies and divulging the identity of the station that we had chosen to listen to. It was during one of these seemingly mundane interludes that an ominous shift transpired. The disembodied voice of the DJ reverberated through the speakers, uttering a different station name, one that had not graced our ears before. A collective gaze exchanged between us conveyed the burgeoning unease that began to gnaw at our collective consciousness. Hastily, we restored the familiar tune to our airwaves, only to bear witness to the repetition of this eerie phenomenon a mere quarter of an hour later. With each instance of this peculiar occurrence, our sense of disquietude mounted exponentially. As twilight gradually faded into the embrace of night, the pang of hunger assaulted our senses, necessitating a culinary respite. Determined not to confront the sinister forces lurking within my friend's abode alone, we ventured into the kitchen en masse. While my comrades awaited my return, I seized the opportunity to refresh myself, retreating into the adjacent bedroom to cleanse my visage of the accumulated wariness. Naively, I harbored no concerns, for the bathroom resided a mere few strides away from the proximity of my friend's protective presence. Little did I anticipate the malevolent twist that awaited me beyond the bathroom door. Just as I concluded my ritual of ablutions, a sudden gust of malice seized the door, propelling it shut with an unholy force. The sound reverberated through the house, akin to the detonation of a seismic explosion, reverberating within the deepest recesses of my consciousness. Panic seized my heart as I bolted toward this curious amalgamation of terror, and amusement accentuated the surreal nature of our predicament. From that moment onward, the atmosphere in the house had grown increasingly oppressive, shrouded in an aura of sinister malevolence. As the night wore on, sleep eluded us, replaced instead by an orchestra of creaking footsteps that prowled ominously outside our bedroom window. Each footfall, though ephemeral in nature, echoed with a menacing resonance, eliciting a chilling shudder that coursed through our very beings. Such was the intensity of our encounter that we vowed never to darken the doorstep of our friend's house again, fleeing from its haunted clutches at the first light of dawn, as if our very lives depended on it. And so, my dear interlocutor, I recount this harrowing episode, forever etched within the annals of my memory. To this day, this chilling specter of that fateful night in 1992 haunts my dreams, a testament to the impenetrable mysteries that reside within the interplay of our world and the realm beyond. Story number 9, Haunted House. I've spent my entire life here in the Philippines, surrounded by the rich cultural heritage and vibrant community that defines this beautiful country. My roots run deep, as I was born and raised in a house that my grandparents left behind when they immigrated to the United States. It's a big house with a sprawling layout and an intriguing unfinished basement that's been a source of countless peculiar occurrences. Growing up, I had heard numerous accounts of the strange happenings that took place within the depths of my basement. My mother often recounted her own encounters with the supernatural, and one day, while busy preparing lunch in the spacious kitchen, she caught a glimpse of my aunt walking across the living room, dragging her slippers along as she usually did. Assuming that my aunt was hungry and would appreciate a larger portion, my mother cooked some extra food, but when she finished cooking and called out to my aunt, there was no response. It dawned on her that she was not alone in the house, and the figure she had seen was a mere apparition. Another incident involving my mother took place as she was diligently cleaning her room, which happened to be located adjacent to the basement stairs. She was sweeping the floor when she absent-mindedly glanced toward the open door, only to find a dark figure, shirtless and wearing only jeans, descending the basement stairs. Once again, she realized that she was alone in the house, leaving her bewildered and shaken. Strangely, my uncle also shared a similar encounter with the same shirtless dark figure, except this time it was peering at him through the second-floor bedroom window, a window that overlooked the outside of the house where no one should have been able to stand. As for my own experiences, I vividly recall an unsettling incident that occurred while I was engaged in a conversation with my cousin in the dining room. The room directly above us was the master bedroom, currently occupied by my uncle. Suddenly, we heard the distinct sound of chairs scraping the tables being moved, coming from the room above. Naturally, I assumed it was my uncle cleaning up after himself. Curiosity got the better of me, though, so I ventured upstairs and rapped on the bedroom door, seeking permission to watch television in his room. Simple ask. To my surprise, there was no response to my knocking. I tried again, but still there was no answer. Slightly perplexed, I descended the staircase and heard the sound of the doorbell ringing. I hastened to open the front door, only to find my uncle returning home from a long day of work. It became evident that the source of the mysterious noises remained a perplexing enigma. Perhaps the most spine-chilling encounter came from my cousin, who had an unsettling experience while conversing with our grandparents upon their return from the United States. As he glanced toward the basement stairs, he noticed a spectral arm waving at him, as if beckoning him to come closer. Deeply disturbed, he immediately shared his alarming observation with our grandfather, a man of unwavering Christian faith. My grandfather chose to confront the situation head-on. Waiting until the clock struck 3 a.m., a time traditionally associated with the supernatural, he ventured into the darkness of the basement alone, determined to communicate with whatever entity was haunting our house. Despite the eerie silence that enveloped the basement, he fearlessly called out, expecting some form of response. Yet, to his surprise, he saw and heard nothing, leaving him perplexed and amazed. It was a testament to his unwavering bravery, forged through his experiences as a soldier who had fought valiantly in World War II. The stories I have shared here merely scratch the surface of the myriad inexplicable events that have taken place within the confines of my family's ancestral home. From spectral figures to unexplained noises, our house seems to hold secrets that may forever remain shrouded in mystery. But one thing is certain, the supernatural occurrences have left an indelible mark on all of us, adding an air of mystery and intrigue to our lives that can never be forgotten. As we continue to reside in this house, we find solace in the strength of our familial bonds and the resilience that comes from embracing the unknown. As we navigate a world where the supernatural and ordinary intertwine in inexplicable ways. Story number 10. Follow-up story on haunted house I grew up in. This captivating tale I'm about to share with you was recounted to me once by none other than my dear cousin, Shira. It serves as a continuation of the enthralling narrative I've previously shared about the cherished house in which I spent my formative years. Let me take you back in time to when I was a teenager, as my cousin's account unveils an eerily captivating incident that unfolded within the confines of our beloved family home. Now, it's worth mentioning that my cousin Shara, bless her heart, happens to be the same age as my youngest sister, Zip. Yes, there is quite an age gap between us, for I find myself 8 years her senior. As I stand here today, a middle-aged individual of 46, reminiscing about my youth, this particular incident occurred during those adolescent years when the world was still a vast and mysterious realm awaiting exploration. To set the scene, my sister, cousin, and I found solace in one another's company, and we were accompanied in our escapades by none other than her only brother, the mischievous Dre. These childhood adventures, which took place in the early 1990s, would forever be etched into our memories. According to Shara's recollection, on that eventful day our juvenile quartet found themselves playfully rummaging through our grandmother's spacious closet. Situated within the confines of a well-appointed dressing room, this closet served as a gateway to the adjacent bedroom. Now, as I mentioned in my previous narrative, this particular bedroom has become the sanctuary of our uncle, a man who possessed a physique reminiscent of the legendary Bruce Lee. Not only was he a paragon of fitness, he was also held in high esteem in the title of Kali Master and a teacher. In the midst of their spirited hiding game within the closet's cozy confines, my sister, cousin, and brother suddenly became aware of faint sounds emanating from the neighboring bedroom. It seemed as though someone was energetically utilizing a jump rope, their rhythmic movements reverberating through the air. Naturally, their initial assumption was that her uncle had returned home, engaging in his customary daily workout routine. Driven by curiosity, they mustered the courage to gingerly open the closet door, intending to sneak a peek at her physically formidable relative amidst his vigorous exercise regimen. To their astonishment, the very moment the closet door creaked open, the rhythmic jumping ceased abruptly. What greeted their eyes was the sight of a discarded jump rope, carelessly strewn about the bedroom floor. A sense of foreboding washed over them, and inquisitiveness quickly transformed into a need for reassurance. Seeking answers to this perplexing occurrence, they made their way downstairs, embarking on a quest to find her mother, the guardian of her household secrets. With mounting curiosity and trepidation, they posed the question that was gnawing at their young minds. Is Uncle home? Was he the one using the jump rope? To their bewilderment, our mother responded with a resolute negation. Uncle, it appeared, was not within the confines of our family haven at that time. Left with no other explanation, my sister, cousin, brother, and mother found themselves at an impasse. There were no additional occupants in the house. It was a mere quartet of kin, left to grapple with the mystery that had unfurled before their eyes. The absence of plausible answers only deepened the enigma, leaving them with an unsettling sense of uncertainty. Now allow me to shift gears and recount yet another tale of paranormal intrigue, this time regaled by my cousin Rachel. This particular occurrence unfolded when she extended a warm invitation to her closest companions, urging them to venture into the uncharted depths of our house's basement. The motive behind this brave descent into the abyss was likely fueled by their insatiable curiosity, a relentless pursuit of unraveling the secrets veiled within the dimly lit recesses of our abode. As Rachel and her intrepid companions made their way into the basement, they found themselves enveloped in an atmosphere pregnant with anticipation. Little did they know that their innocent quest for knowledge would soon be met with a peculiar and spine-tingling encounter. Out of the blue, a shower of crumpled paper projectiles began hurtling towards them, unleashing an onslaught of fear that surged through their veins. Startled and disoriented, their instincts promptly kicked into overdrive, compelling them to abandon their subterranean endeavor and seek solace in the safety of the living room, situated far above the eerie depths from whence they came. And so, my esteemed audience, I present you with these two enthralling tales, narrated through the eyes of those who experienced the inexplicable firsthand. The incidents that unfolded within the confines of our beloved childhood home continue to perplex and mystify us till this day. These accounts serve as a testament to the enduring allure of the supernatural, leaving us to ponder the mysteries that lay hidden within the very walls that sheltered us. As time marches on, we are left with nothing but vivid memories and a sense of wonder, forever yearning to unravel the enigmatic threads that intertwine our past and present. Story number 11. Cursed Talisman. His room was located directly above ours on the dormitory. The layout of our dorm rooms is quite peculiar, as they are long and narrow. As you enter, you come face to face with 3 connected bunk beds firmly attached to the right wall, while the left side is adorned with cabinets and desks. At the far end of the room, opposite the entrance, there is a window allowing in a modest amount of natural light. Genuinely, 6 individuals occupy this rather cramped space, navigating their daily lives within its confines. Let's refer to the central character of this story as Jake. Although our campus is situated in the province, a 2-hour distance from the city where Jake resides, he had chosen to pursue his education in this serene environment. One fateful day, as he was casually strolling through the city streets, his attention was captivated by an old, intriguing metal artifact he stumbled upon. Driven by curiosity, he swiftly picked it up, fascinated by its ancient allure. Placing it delicately in his pocket, he returned to campus, unaware of the profound consequences that awaited him. In our culture, such enigmatic objects are often called anting, and are believed to bestow upon their holders extraordinary abilities, most notably invincibility. Little did Jake know that the relic he had acquired possessed a mysterious power far beyond his comprehension. Upon bringing the artifact to our house, an inexplicable sequence of events unfurled, surrounding Jake with an aura of unease and apprehension. Initially, he alone sensed a perpetual presence lurking behind him, an unsettling feeling of someone's proximity that sent shivers down his spine. Climbing up the ladder to reach the top bunk became a harrowing experience, as he felt invisible hands tugging restlessly at his ankles, threatening to pull him down. These inexplicable phenomenon, initially confined to Jake's experiences, soon began to permeate the lives of his bewildered roommates as well. The dormitory, once a sanctuary of shared memories and camaraderie, became a breeding ground for the inexplicable. Mysterious noises echoed from the cabinets, alternating between disturbing bangs and unsettling moans, reverberating throughout the night. The final straw for the terrified occupant came when they discovered their colossal body mirror, usually attached securely to the door, suspended eerily on the window pane at the opposite end of the room. It was as if an unseen force had toyed with their sanity, defying the laws of physics itself. Driven to the brink of their collective sanity, the terrified group hastily descended to the second floor, seeking solace in the study area. Determined to rid themselves of this cursed artifact, they placed the relic upon the study table in the hallway, hoping that by distancing themselves from this malevolent influence, they could restore their once peaceful existence. As they re-entered their room, their ears were met with a faint clanking sound, sending shivers down their spine. To their utmost horror, the artifact had mysteriously reappeared, lurking menacingly under one of the beds, defying any rational explanation. Throughout this nightmarish ordeal, Jake's mental state deteriorated rapidly, a stress weighing heavily upon him, and his eyes lost their luster, portraying a glazed and haunted look. It remained a mystery as to why he clung to the artifact despite the torment it had wrought upon him and his companions. Perhaps he had attempted to rid himself of its malevolence, only to find his efforts futile and the artifact impossibly bound to him. After enduring this relentless onslaught of supernatural occurrences for several weeks, rumors began to circulate that Jake had made the decision to vacate the dormitory. His abrupt departure left a void in the hearts of his friends and acquaintances, who were left with countless unanswered questions. The enigmatic artifact, too, vanished from their lives, leaving behind a legend of fear and uncertainty. In the years that followed, whispers of Jake's tale occasionally resurfaced, but they were met with echoes of a bygone era. The whereabouts and fate of Jake remained an enigma, lost in the annals of time. The story of the cursed artifact and its eerie influence became nothing more than a ghostly legend, whispered among those who dared to remember. Story number 12. Entity Encounter, Chakra Meditations, and Ontological Shock. Currently, I'm a 27-year-old man, but about 6 or 7 years ago I found myself in college, embarking on my first semester and joining the fraternity. It wasn't a necessity for me, but there was a certain appeal to the idea of being part of something bigger. It was during the following semester that I developed a strong urge to explore spirituality fully. As an atheist, I wanted to delve into different philosophies and beliefs to see if there was anything worth pursuing or understanding before committing to any particular lifestyle. If I found nothing, perhaps I could justify not caring about anything, since in the grand scheme, nothing really mattered. After conducting some research, I made the somewhat edgy decision to delve into meditation through spiritual Satanism. Now, I know it might sound unconventional, but hear me out. I reasoned that if people could commit heinous acts in the name of Christianity, then it stood to reason that people could also do the same in the name of Satanism. After all, labels shouldn't define one's character. Moreover, the core beliefs of spiritual Satanism focused on the idea that Satan, contrary to popular perception, was actually a benevolent figure who granted humanity consciousness through the apple, quote-unquote. It had nothing to do with engaging in evil or leading an indulgent life. The primary goal was to mediate and open one's chakras, align the kundalini energy, and unlock the full potential of being human. It drew heavily from Hindu scripture, and I found it rather intriguing. I dedicated months to learning the art of meditation, starting with basic techniques like closing my eyes and visualizations. Gradually, I progressed to chakra meditations, and that's when things started to get interesting. I began focusing on my third eye, using the technique of chanting Om and directing the vibration to my forehead while visualizing light or energy pouring in and an eye opening. I diligently practiced this every day for a couple of weeks. Whether it was a placebo effect or not, I couldn't say for certain, but the pressure in my forehead intensified over time. It felt as if a thumb or some external force was pressing outward. This sensation became particularly prominent when I focused it or experienced moments of intuition. Once my third eye was open, I no longer needed the oming meditations because I could just feel its presence 24/7 if I chose to. I began to meditate specifically on my third eye, trying to achieve a state of non-focus where I neither exerted too much effort nor became too lax. After a while, I would start to see a pulsating blue light. The longer I could maintain the state of non-focus, the brighter and faster the pulsations became, until the blue light completely engulfed my vision. If I could reach this point successfully, I would be treated to incredibly vivid and detailed mental images of places, people, and monsters and various objects. It felt as though they were right in front of me, brought to life by the blue light. Admittedly, my excitement often disrupted my focus, but I managed to achieve this state multiple times. I should mention that it's been years since I last practiced meditation, particularly in this manner. However, even to this day, I can still sense the presence of my third eye if I choose to focus on it. Sometimes the feeling even arises randomly. Hopefully it's not just a brain tumor or something like that, although that thought has crossed my mind. This entire experience completely shocked me and forced me to reevaluate reality itself. Was I going insane? Could it all be nothing more than a placebo effect? If these experiences were indeed real, what else was out there? Did the government or other powerful entities have knowledge of these spiritual realms? As time went on, I even started seeing ghosts and subtle spirits. Granted, it could have been my mind playing tricks on me, a psychological phenomenon known as pareidolia, but these entities would occasionally interact with me. There was a 2-week period where I would wake up every night at 2 a.m. to my bed violently shaking, and I would see a figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was undeniably creepy, but here's the thing. By that point, I had become a firm believer in the idea that a race of benevolent beings had my back, as preached by the spiritual Satanism. Therefore, I never truly felt threatened. Besides, these occurrences were well documented within the research I had been undertaking. I learned to meditate and visualize protective shields and pour energy into them and establish a defense against any negative energy or spirit that my newfound sensitivity allowed me to perceive. All of these events led to a climactic night at a fraternity house. We were throwing a massive party and my friends and I were determined to have a great time. I indulged in some drinking and smoking weed, but nothing too excessive. Little did I realize how fragile my mental state had become. I had opened myself up to the possibility that negative entities were actively trying to suppress me from uncovering this hidden knowledge, engaging in a cosmic battle against a race of benevolent entities that sought to free humanity from spiritual ignorance. Suddenly, I felt an overwhelming sense that something was horribly wrong. A foreboding presence seemed to envelop me, and I felt immensely threatened. Despite the party going on around me, I hastily sought refuge in my friend's bed, succumbing to panic. My heart raced and I felt a grip tightening around me. I desperately fought back, utilizing all my visualization techniques for defense, but soon I realized I was outmatched by whatever malevolent force was at play. There was a moment when I genuinely believed I was ready to die. But then an even stronger presence emerged, obliterating the dark and ominous feeling that had consumed me. At first, encountering this new presence was utterly terrifying. It felt more real than anything I'd ever known, and it seemed to see through every part of me. Yet as quickly as the terror had arisen, it transformed into an overwhelming sense of love, and I broke down entirely. It was as if my ego underwent a form of death. This entity began communicating with me telepathically while I curled up on the bed, soul to soul. It conveyed to me that I should confess to my parents the extent of my mistakes that semester, that I should come clean. I felt as if my throat chakra opened, allowing me to purge the negativity of the night away, and as I did, an immense sensation of relief washed over me. I spent some time in complete awe and astonishment, and then, as if in the blink of an eye, it was morning. I felt amazing, as though I'd been nourishing my body with salads and working out twice a day for the past month. In the following month, I found solace in Zen Buddhism. I realized that I needed to ground myself and establish a sense of stability. Moreover, I had developed a profound fear of ever experiencing something as intense and overwhelming as that night again. So, I gradually distanced myself from the spiritual practices that had led me to that point. I sought to regain a semblance of normalcy in my life. I titled my experience as ontological shock because that's precisely what it was. A complete breakdown and reformation of my perception of reality. It was an immensely challenging and tumultuous journey, but looking back, I genuinely believe that in the long run, I gained invaluable insights and advantages from that transformative period of my life. Story number 13. I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember that incident I shared with you guys about an alien sighting when I was around 12 years old? Well, guess what? Last night, something incredibly bizarre happened, and it's kept me up all night, unable to shake off the lingering sense of unease. It all started off like any other ordinary night. It was around 9:30 p.m., and I found myself in the kitchen, engrossed in the process of making some delectable avocado toasts. As I stood there slicing the avocado and spreading it onto crispy toast, I suddenly heard my dog barking furiously, his attention fixated on the vast field across the road. Usually his barking signifies the presence of a deer, a common occurrence in our area. Peering through the glass sliding door in the kitchen, I could see the source of his agitation. Initially I dismissed it, convinced that it was just one that had pulled into our driveway. Yet, despite my skepticism, I couldn't ignore the fact that my dog's barking was growing increasingly frantic and loud. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate further. Approaching the door, I found my dog turning his gaze towards me, his tail wagging with unmistakable excitement. This behavior was highly unusual, as he only displayed such exuberance when someone was physically present outside, rather than merely peering through the doors. To provide some context, my dog is a remarkable combination of a Great Dane and a German Shepherd. At the age of 13, he rarely exhibits such youthful enthusiasm. Needless to say, I found this peculiar and couldn't resist the urge to peer into the darkness beyond the comforting glow of the street lamp of our yard. Taking a deep breath, I focused my gaze beyond the veil of darkness, hoping to discern the cause of my dog's frenzied barking. However, I didn't have to strain my eyes for long before the flicker of movement caught my attention, originating from the vicinity of one of the cars parked in our driveway. The dim lighting made it challenging to make out any details, but the sight was enough to send a shiver down my spine. Despite my initial urge to dismiss the whole ordeal, I found myself becoming increasingly alarmed. Reacting swiftly to the mounting fear, I closed the curtain to the door, obscuring my view of the mysterious movement. However, I couldn't resist leaving a narrow crack in the curtain, allowing me to maintain a cautious glimpse of the outside world. With my heart pounding in my chest, I fixated my gaze on the spot where the movement had originated, right behind the window of the car. Time seemed to stand still as I waited, my eyes never wavering from the enigmatic scene before me. For a brief moment, nothing caught my attention, and I contemplated leaving, dismissing it as a trick of the imagination. But then out of nowhere, I saw it, a slim, shadowy figure, swiftly peering over the window at the back of the car. The contrast of the figure against the car's backdrop made its presence chillingly clear. I continued to watch, transfixed, as this mysterious entity appeared to slither up and down the car's rear with an uncanny deliberation, retaining the vague form of what I could only assume was human. At this point, fear engulfed me entirely, causing my mind to race with unsettling thoughts. Instinctively, I closed the curtains, plunging the kitchen into darkness. As adrenaline coursed through my veins, I hurriedly made my way back to the bedroom, where my boyfriend lay sound asleep. The urgency of the situation propelled me forward, desperate for a sense of safety and reassurance. The events of that night have left an indelible mark on me. The inexplicable presence I witnessed outside my home, the peculiar movements, and the lingering sense of the unknown have haunted my thoughts ever since. Sleep eluded me, as my mind raced through countless scenarios and questions, searching for answers that seemed frustratingly out of reach. So here I am, recounting this strange encounter for you in the hopes of finding some solace, some semblance of understanding. As the hours ticked by and the morning light slowly filtered through the curtains, I can't help but wonder about the true nature of that shadowy figure and the secret that it holds. Story number 14. Encounter with extraterrestrial beings? I remember vividly the night when this eerie encounter unfolded. It was a time that forever imprinted itself upon my mind. Let me take you back to when I was merely 12 years old, a wide-eyed child blissfully unaware of the mysteries that lay hidden in the depths of the universe. Now at the age of 19, I can reflect upon that fateful night with a sense of maturity and an understanding that surpasses the innocence of my youth. It was the end of summer break, and as the impending morning signaled my return to school, I begrudgingly prepared for an earlier bedtime. That evening, I settled down in front of the television, with the delightful movie Meet the Robinsons playing before me, captivating my imagination. It must have been around 10:30 p.m. when sleep beckoned me to its embrace. Inexplicably, I awoke amidst the night, feeling a palpable sense of disarray in the air. As I groggily surveyed my surroundings, my eyes were drawn to the television screen, which displayed a chaotic jumble of distorted images. It resembled a faulty DVD, plagued by skips and freezes, Yet this peculiar phenomenon persisted, the frozen, warping figures etched into my memory. Strangely enough, the movie disc itself remained unharmed, leaving me perplexed by this inexplicable occurrence. Estimating the hour to be between 2 and 3 a.m., I gradually became aware of raised voices emanating from the kitchen. Curiosity propelled me out of bed, drawn toward the commotion that seemed to resonate with panic. Unbeknownst to my mother or older sister, who were also engrossed in their heated exchange, I discreetly entered the kitchen, eager to uncover the cause of their distress. Caught off guard by my sudden appearance, my mother's tear-filled eyes met mine, and I could sense her trembling with fear. In a voice tinged with sadness, she uttered words that sent shivers down my spine, revealing her belief that extraterrestrial beings were present outside our home. The weight of her words settled upon me, and I too began to feel the inexplicable unease. Together we stood in front of the sliding glass door, peering out into the darkness that enveloped our yard and the expansive field beyond. Confusion clouded my thoughts until my gaze landed upon our massive canine companion, a majestic Sherman Shepherd and Great Dane mix, sitting motionlessly in the middle of the yard, his attention fixed on our neighbor's house to the right. With an inquisitive tone, I questioned my mother about her dog's unusual behavior and his absence from his usual perch on the porch. In response, she cautiously slid open the door, wary of making any noise that could alert an unseen presence. As the door glided open, something struck me as peculiar. Our usually attentive canine companion remained undisturbed, his unwavering gaze fixed upon an unseen point in the distance. Though the full scope of the situation eluded me, the palpable fear in the air was contagious, permeating my very being. Recognizing the gravity, my mother signaled my sister and me to remain silent, a shared understanding that silence may unveil the truth behind this enigma. Straining our ears, we realized that the typical nighttime symphony of animal calls and rustling leaves had been replaced by an eerie and oppressive silence, devoid of even the faintest whisper of a breeze. This unnatural stillness sent a chill down my spine, causing my body to tremble involuntarily. It was a chilling reminder that something was undeniably amiss. Subsequently, my mother closed the door, and we retreated to the sanctuary of her bedroom, where my father lay sound asleep. The room's open window served as our portal to the outside world, a portal that now seemed fraught with uncertainty. Gathering us close, my mother proceeded to unravel the truth behind the events that had unfolded before us. She explained that my sister, while searching for something in my room, had glanced out the window, her gaze falling upon what she initially believed to be a pack of coyotes. However, as her focus sharpened, she discerned subtle features that defied logical explanation, prompting her to hurriedly abandon my room and seek solace in our mother's presence. With a trembling voice, my mother recounted her own encounter. Prior to my sister's revelation, she had ventured outside and witnessed a tall, slender figure traversing the neighboring driveway, seemingly heading towards her house. Initially mistaking it for our neighbor, she soon succumbed to an unexplained surge of apprehension, prompting her to feign sleep, hoping to avoid any encounter with this mysterious neighbor. And so, our collective fear guided us to the kitchen window, granting us a vantage point overlooking the neighboring houses, nestled side by side. Though darkness shrouded the scene before us, we strained our eyes, attempting to discern the elusive figures lurking in the shadows. Most of them moved with an astonishing speed, their diminutive forms darting in and out of sight. But as we focused our attention further, we could perceive slower-moving, towering silhouettes, their dark outlines contrasting starkly against the backdrop, their movements possessing an uncanny fluidity that defied the laws of nature. It was an ethereal sight, one that felt utterly surreal and inconceivable. In the midst of our observation, an intriguing detail caught my attention. The woods behind the neighboring house, a place I had often glanced upon, harbored an unexpected secret. Nestled among the trees, hovering tantalizingly close to the ground, were 3 distinct lights, evenly spaced apart. Their dim illumination revealed a green, a red, and perhaps a blue hue, adding an inexplicable element to the already perplexing tableau. Never before had we witnessed such an arrangement of lights, and their sudden appearance only deepened the mystery unfolding before our eyes. For what felt like an eternity, we remained glued to the window, our hearts racing with a mixture of awe, terror, and a sense of the inexplicable. Time seemed to blur as minutes melded into an eternity of surreal observation. My mother's breath grew increasingly labored, her shock and disbelief reverberating through her very being. Eventually, she decided it was time to retreat from our vantage point, leading us back into her room. With trembling hands, she cautiously widened the window, casting a sense of unease upon me. In hushed whispers, she implored us to maintain silence, an unspoken pact forged in the face of the unknown. We obediently complied, enveloped in an eerie silence, a symphony of uncertainty that mirrored the surreal stillness that had blanketed the night. Suddenly, as if punctuating the moment, a distant sound pierced the silence, an engine's low hum, reminiscent of a passing car. Strangely, the sound persisted, gradually intensifying, transforming into a deafening roar akin to an airplane soaring overhead. Astonishingly, despite the apparent proximity of the sound, no vehicle materialized before our eyes. It was a bewildering experience, leaving us dumbfounded and questioning the very fabric of reality. This surreal auditory phenomenon continues intermittently, each resurgence plunging us further into a state of disarray. Having weathered these inexplicable events, my mother made the decision to close the window, drawing the curtains tightly to shield us from the enigma that lingered outside, the tremors of fear still coursing through our veins. As dawn approached and the first day of light painted the sky, my courage finally summoned the strength to return to my room. Hours had passed since the initial disturbance, and the scattered remnants of my sleep-ravaged state lay before me. The television still displayed its scrambled chaos, a constant reminder of the otherworldly events that had unfolded. Desperate to restore a semblance of normalcy, I attempted to eject the disc, only to find it unresponsive. Faced with no other option, I reluctantly unplugged the DVD player, severing the link to the enigmatic images that had haunted me throughout the night. On this day, the memory of that harrowing night continues to haunt me, etched into the very core of my being. It is a tale that I can only muster the courage to recount when under the influence of alcohol, for the emotions it evokes remain raw and overwhelming. Few are privy to the full extent of the story, as I reserve its retelling for those whom I trust with my life, and even then, the weight of its enigma often proves too great to bear. Thus, dear listener, I have shared with you the intricate details of an extraordinary night, an encounter with the unknown that left an indelible mark on my soul. May this account serve as a reminder that our world is vast and full of enigmatic wonders, and that sometimes the inexplicable finds a way to break through the boundaries of our comprehension. Story number 15, a story from a missionary boarding school in the hills. During my formative years, I had the privilege of attending a prestigious boarding school nestled amidst the breathtaking hills for a span of 5 years until I finally reached the pinnacle of high school graduation. It was a truly remarkable institution, having withstood the test of time for over a century, with the buildings that we occupied exuding an air of antiquity as they were remnants of colonial architecture from a bygone era. Enveloped in an aura of historical significance, my experiences within those hallowed halls were imbued with a sense of awe and reverence. In the 10th grade, I found myself residing in a dormitory that had once served as a boarding house for the Danish missionaries back in the 1800s. This particular structure possessed a strikingly aesthetic appeal, featuring an open yarn, rectangular design that bestowed upon its occupants the unique ability to gaze across the expanse of the dormitory, comprising approximately 30 individuals, by merely standing outside the confines of their respective rooms. Such a vantage point rendered the atmosphere within the dormitory both captivating and communal. It was within the walls of room 12B that I sought refuge, an abode that occupied a secluded nook of the corner of the building, sandwiched between the adjacent rooms 12 and 14. Remarkably, this room was akin to the amalgamation of two diminutive chambers, connected by an internal doorway. The allure of this arrangement lay in the illusion of enhanced privacy that it offered, a rare luxury not typically enjoyed in the conventional setting of a shared accommodation with a roommate. Overseeing the daily affairs of our all-girls dormitory was a widow in her 40s, affectionately known as Miss Sarah, her name altered for the sake of privacy, who had dutifully served the school for a period spanning 9 years. Devoutly religious and possessing an unwavering sense of moral rectitude, Miss Sarah resided in a modest attachment apartment situated on the lower floor of the dormitory. Being alone in the world, her daughter having entered the sacred bond of marriage while her husband met his untimely demise on the battlefield, Miss Sarah presented herself as an amiable and genial figure. However, there always existed a sense that within me that she was excessively devout, a quality that clashed with my own inclinations, despite attending a school founded by missionaries. On one particular night, I had succumbed to the allure of a newly released episode of the wildly popular television series Game of Thrones, resulting in a much later bedtime than usual. Consequently, the inevitable need to utilize the bathroom manifested itself around 2 a.m. Engulfed in a cloak of caution, I cautiously peered outside my door, meticulously surveying the hallway to ensure Miss Sarah was not patrolling the vicinity. Once the coast was deemed clear, I seized the opportunity to stealthily traverse the corridor, hastily reaching the communal bathroom located at the far end. Having concluded my nocturnal escapade within the confines of the lavatory, I embarked on my return journey to my room, only to be greeted by the unexpected sight of illuminated lights emanating from Miss Sarah's house. Reacting instinctively, I retraced my steps with swiftness, retreating to the sanctuary of my own room before climbing into my bed, endeavoring to maintain the facade of slumber. As I lay there, concealed beneath the protective embrace of my blankets, the audible cadence of Miss Sarah's footsteps reverberated through the upper reaches of the dormitory. Up and down the corridor she roamed, her presence duly noted by the keenness of my senses. Yet I remained steadfast in my resolve to feign sleep until she eventually descended the staircase, vanishing from my oral purview. Much to my consternation, the tranquility of that peculiar night was abruptly shattered as the door to my room creaked open. The sound of footsteps cautiously approached the vicinity of my roommate's designated space. Stirred within me was a modicum of annoyance. It was not entirely unusual for Miss Sarah to casually peek inside a room before exiting, an action that would normally elicit little concern. However, the notion that she would venture into an ostensibly serene room at such an ungodly hour left me feeling disconcerted. To compound matters further, her softly uttered hymn, emanating from her lips in an almost unconscious manner, seemed to permeate the air, contributing to an increasing sense of trepidation within me. I anxiously anticipated her departure, yearning for the moment when her footsteps would finally recede. Fate had other plans. The sequence of her footsteps, distinctive in their rhythm, heralded her approach toward my side of the room. Cloaked in darkness with my head safely ensconced beneath the covers, I could not visually ascertain her proximity, but I could sense her presence looming mere inches from the foot of my bed. And there she stood, her voice growing louder and clearer, fervently immersed in her melodic recitation of a hymn. The intensity of the situation became palpable, as if an invisible web of disquietude enveloped the very essence of the room. For what felt like an eternity she remained there, her gaze transfixed upon my slumbering form, while the cadence of her song continued to reverberate through the hushed stillness of the night. Throughout the disquieting interlude, I held my breath, as though caught in the moment of suspended animation, my mind fraught with unease at the inexplicable turn of events. Finally, her hymn gradually waned, eventually dissipating into silence as she retreated from the room. My heart pounded within the confines of my chest, and with bated breath, I waited several agonizing minutes before summoning the courage to gingerly part the curtains adorning the window, overlooking the interior of the dormitory. There I beheld a disquieting scene, the shared computer room bathed in the soft glow of artificial light, while Miss Sarah, consumed by an inconsolable grief, unleashed her sorrowful cries, her her voice intermingling with the timeless strains of the hymn that she'd previously serenaded me with. Tears cascaded down her cheeks as she cradled her head within her trembling hands. Her anguished lamentation pierced the night air with an intensity that allowed its echoes to permeate through 4 closed doors, reaching my ears with unwavering clarity. Overwhelmed by the weight of the situation, my mind in disarray, I hastily sought refuge once more beneath the comforting folds of my blanket, unwilling to confront the enigma that had unfolded before me. Something deeply unsettling has transpired that night, a sense of foreboding that gnawed at my very core, rendering sleep an elusive companion. Consequently, the passage of time was marred by the torment of restless contemplation as I grappled with the haunting specter of Miss Sarah's inexplicable actions. Story number 16. I got followed by a demon. True story. I've always had the extraordinary ability to perceive the presence of shadow people, those elusive figures that linger at the periphery of my vision. It may sound peculiar, but I assure you it's the truth. These enigmatic entities rarely venture into the forefront of my sight, but occasionally they manifest before me in vivid detail. While they've never posed any direct harm or attempted to make physical contact with me, their constant presence is undeniably eerie. From what I can gather, they seem to possess a predominantly benign nature, merely observing from the shadows. However, there exists another group of supernatural beings that do not share the same inclination towards goodness. These malevolent entities are the demons that sporadically haunt my existence. I understand if this revelation is met with skepticism, as until now, only my immediate family and closest friends have been privy to this personal truth. I implore you to bear with me as I recount my encounters with these ominous forces. One particular encounter with the demon remains etched in my memory. Searing with an intensity that surpasses the rest, it transpired 8 years ago when I held the position of a radio producer at a web radio station in Greece, my homeland. Every Saturday evening from 8 to 10 p.m., I curated a program dedicated to rock and metal. On that fateful night, I concluded my show as per usual and embarked on the journey homeward. The wintry landscape enveloped the streets, and the remnants of Christmas decorations still adorned the surroundings. The road leading to my residence ran parallel to the bustling boulevard, but at that late hour, the usually vibrant thoroughfare was shrouded into tranquil silence, a rare respite from the clamor of the day. Embracing the serenity, I sauntered through the frigid air, relishing in the stillness that enveloped me. Yet amidst the tranquility, an unwelcome presence began to make itself known. Faint footsteps reverberated behind me, intruding upon the solitude that I cherished. I instinctively halted, pivoting my body to face the source of the sound, only to discover an empty expanse stretching before me. Confusion mingled with a sense of unease, but I dismissed it as a figment of my overactive imagination, an ephemeral illusion conjured by my mind. Resuming my journey, I attempted to brush off the disconcerting incident, convinced of its insignificance. However, the disquieting footsteps returned, resounding once more in the darkness. A shiver crept up my spine, accompanied by a surge of trepidation that coursed through my veins. Reluctantly, I resolved to maintain my pace, rationalizing that it could be a mere pedestrian who had emerged from their dwelling, even though I had heard no telltale signs of doors opening or closing. Inwardly, I endeavored to preserve my composure, determined to find a logical explanation for the disconcerting phenomenon unfolding around me. Suddenly, a macabre metamorphosis occurred, as the rhythmic footfalls transformed into an unnerving sound reminiscent of hooves, a disquieting revelation that shattered any lingering hopes of rationality. The realization struck me with an almost physical force. It was no product of my imagination. It was a genuine encounter with a demon. In an instant, my heartbeat surged to an erratic cadence, the symphony of anxiety reverberating within my chest. Beads of perspiration materialized upon my trembling hands, born from the sheer terror that gripped me. In a surge of adrenaline-fueled panic, I propelled myself forward, sprinting the remaining 20 meters to the safety of my apartment building's entrance. Only upon firmly shutting the door behind me did I dare to exhale, gradually regaining control over my respiration. As I stole a furtive glance outside, I discovered that the street lay devoid of any otherworldly presence. Whatever malevolent force had pursued me had vanished, leaving no trace of its existence. I silently thanked the heavens that I had refrained from succumbing to the impulse of casting my gaze backward, knowing that such an act could have catastrophic consequences. The sole purpose of that demon's visitation had been to instill an overwhelming sense of fear within me, a potent reminder that the sadistic delight in tormenting my fragile psyche could be real. These encounters with demons often mirror a sinister game of cat and mouse, a disconcerting rendition of hide-and-seek played out in the darkest recesses of reality. While I continue to navigate this unsettling existence, perpetually on guard against their ominous presence, I am grateful for the unwavering support of my loved ones who have stood by me, lending credence to my experiences. So as I recount this tale to you, a stranger whose skepticism I anticipate, I beseech you to suspend your disbelief, if only for a fleeting moment. The world teems with wonders and terrors yet to be comprehended, and it's in this realm of the unseen that my extraordinary journey unfolds, emboldening me to confront the enigmatic forces that lurk within the depths of the human experience.